The paper is titled Megaliths in Bison Valley, Archaeological Perspectives on the Iron Age. Okay, now those who are familiar with field work in Kerala know that we are dealing with sites which are heavily disturbed, particularly in the megalithic context. And this is precisely the condition in which we saw the site about a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago to be precise. The date is already here on the photograph when I took the photo. The site was known previously. As an archaeological site, it has been known from late 19th century. Excavations have taken place as a result of as a part of antiquarian researches in the 1930s onwards. In 2018, as part of the rock art survey of IGNCA, our team had visited the site. In 2021, this new road was being, the existing road was being expanded, and so more megaliths were accidentally exposed. Here in this photo on the left, we can see this is the Chokka Made. It's a very famous region, archaeological site in Idukki. Idukki's archaeological researchers is very well known, particularly in the recent years from Deccan College. There has been PhD dissertations on it. There was an excavation led by Deccan College team. And so for rock art, there have been a lot of interesting studies in the Anjanad Valley. So the archaeology of Idukki needs no introduction. This is a site which gives us certain insights into regional perspectives which were not available with the evidence which was available in front of us before this new discovery came up. The sites are heavily disturbed. This is an urn burial, and here we can see a lot of root activities there. It was cleared using JCB, and it's at this point that about 15 urn burials and 4 cis burials, 2 or 3 of them were already known a couple of years ago. The fact that this area is strewn with megalithic burial monuments is not something unknown to the community, local community. In the settlement history slide, I'm going to discuss the site formation processes. Here we can see the red ware, this is the urn burial. And then we can also see the capstone on top of it. The parts of the capstone has broken and it has fallen inside. This is the disturbed cyst found in this region. We can see the orthostats of the cyst. Okay, what was the methodology used? It was a combination of archaeological fieldwork, geographical information was gathered, historical research, particularly of the historiography of the archaeological field work there, interviews with the community members who have been constantly coming across these archaeological remains, and previous researchers. And this can reveal, this kind of a combined interdisciplinary approach, a combined methodology can reveal past landscapes of society and aspects of past economy. The fieldwork was in between 2018 and 21. Research problem that we had devised in 2018 was to trace the old route, or what were the interaction networks, because this region is in the highlands. It has well connected through a river system, and it has a lot of similarities with the megalithic or the Iron Age that we see in Tamil Nadu, and also with the megaliths that we see in the lower reaches of the river Periyar. So the site is in the Periyar river basin. So this was the research problem that required looking into how much of similarities were there with the sites and assemblage in the sites which are now in Tamil Nadu, and also the assemblage that is known from the lower reaches of Periyar, particularly from the regions of Perumbavoor and Aluva. So a couple of sites are known from there, such as Okkal, Kunnukara. Kunnukara was referred to in the presentation by Akinori, then Kurumasheri, Okkal, etc. So we have evidence from there, and researchers have worked on the pottery of that of the lower reaches of River Periyar. And so this was a research problem. Why were we looking at the interaction networks? Is because of the presence of stone beams there in the site, and also iron was found in the site, and a lot of standardized features were found in pottery as well as in the distribution of the burials. The environmental background. At this point, the work on the site is going on. And so the mapping of the site is still partial. The site is adjacent to a river. It is on the foothills of Chokkamedu, which was excavated by L.A. Krishnaiyer in the 1940s. It is on the banks of a Tod. Tod is it's a rivulet, Uppar Tod, which is a tributary of Mudirapuzha. And this Mudirapuzha is a tributary of the river Periyar. That's how it becomes part of the Periyar river system. It's a vast burial ground. Now 15 have been exposed. But in the past, many have been reported to have been exposed by the community members. We are imagining a vast burial ground. And these 15 plus 4, around 20 burials that we have seen now is above the flood line. It is at a height of about 10 meters above the flood level. This region was not inundated in the recent 2018 floods. And in our preliminary observation during the scientific clearing, no flood deposit in the past or the present was visible in the site. However, in the recent past, when we inquired with the community members, urn burials have been reported from the flooded plains, which is the lower reaches, not 10-meter high on the ridge, but on the valley. So there also urn burials were there, and they have been reported from the flooded plains where now rice cultivation is going on. Primarily, we see two types of megalithic monuments here, the cist burials and the urn burials. There are many sites nearby. Two well-known sites. One is Chokkamedu, and the other one was also recently known, and the site is named Muttukadu. It is just south of this Bison Valley site. Muttukadu has hundreds of dolmens and other megalithic burials, primarily dolmens. Now, the site formation processes, particularly the cultural formation processes as a result of human settlement. So we try to trace the settlement history of the region. The present settlers are farmers. They have migrated from Kottayam, the plains in Kottayam district, about 50 years ago. And they had first cleared the region immediately after their migration for Karugapulla cultivation. Then the forests were extensively cleared by these farmer settlers for rice cultivation. However, now cardamom is being cultivated. The place is known as Bison Valley. This place name Bison Valley, and the road, which is known as Tea Company Road, because it goes to the tea company, both indicate the existence of a British period tea plantation in late 19th century. This place is very close to Munnar. So Munnar is well known for its tea plantations. And as a result of the tea plantation, there was further human migration and a settlement of migrant plantation laborers came up. So all this led to systematic exposure of these sites, and many of these sites might have been destroyed in this process. Furthermore, during recent house construction, many cyst burials were found in a cluster near Urnford, which will be shown in a preliminary site map that was drawn. And then there was this road. This road was already there in the 19th century. And about 25 years ago, a telephone cable was laid. Some of this, the cable goes through these urn burials. So this is the settlement history of the site. Now let us look at the archaeological studies. The earliest archaeological studies of this region that we could come across was by Ward and Connor during their Travancore survey in the late 19th century. They called them as Pandukuris or barrows. Further, L.A. Krishna Iyer, anthropologist from the University of Madras, he has written the book, The Prehistoric Archaeology of Kerala in 1948. He had discussed the megalithic culture of Kerala at great length. Some of the observations that he made were about the origin, which he thought was a Mediterranean route via Asia Minor. And he tried to see these megaliths of Bison Valley also, and also of the nearby Anjanad, nearby Cardamom Hills, as part of a vast network from Europe to Indonesia in a Eurasian perspective, which has more to do with the historiographical trends of the period that he was working in. He also shared some of the ideas on prehistory of Kerala by Bruce Foote, and later on by Sankalia and by Subbarao and others. That is about the relative isolation of Kerala. So that seclusion of Kerala. This Krishna Iyer also worked within this frame. It's very interesting that Iyer has written in this work, archaeology in Kerala has remained till recently a virgin field of research in the 1940s. And that prehistoric archaeology in Kerala is said to be in the making. And at that point, all these megaliths were considered as part of the prehistoric. But one of the credit should go to Krishna Iyer in speaking about the megalithic people as the first settlers of Kerala. Maybe not the first people to inhabit this part, this region, the Western Ghats, but the first settlers, first farmers in that sense, those who would be settling in a place. And a lot of ethnographic observations were made because he was an anthropologist, and the tribes, he decided to document the burial customs among the tribes and preferred it over the direct archaeological evidence. Now, what were the other aspects that he found in the surrounding region? He made observations that there were utensils which were found inside or below the urns in the case of urn burials. And he did the river survey, Anjanad Valley, Pambanar, Cardamom Hills. He opened one dolmen at Choktanad, and he has written that it's a large earthen jar and it contained a few rice husks, which gives us possibilities of imagining a population which was sedentary, which was settled, and which was doing farming. Later, Mr. Vasudeva Poduwal, the director of archaeology, Travancore State, did excavations in the high ranges. Iyer observed the customs of the Malabandaram tribe, who leave no archaeological trace, which we have also incidentally observed during our survey in the past few years among the Muduvan tribe. So this is a very interesting aspect that those who are dealing with megalithic studies, the word megalith itself is a misnomer. So huge burial monuments need not be expected in the case of all burials. Some of the burials leave no archaeological trace. So that is also very significant when we are trying to reconstruct the landscape. It should not be not only on the basis of the burial monuments that we see, but in many cases there were burials without monuments. Now there are a lot of, he also documented what the tribe settlers of the region or the tribe farmers of the region had considered what was the function of these monuments. They considered these as the abodes of the spirits of the dead ancestors. And some of them considered these as the house of the monkeys. The Uralis would refer to them as Pandukuris and considered some treasure was hidden in those. Vellalas, Malapulayas, Malayarayans, these are the different communities in Anjanadu who had no fear for these monuments. Bones were found, human bones were found, which indicate their burial context. Dolmens were they received more attention from these people. So dolmens was preferred, dominated studies over the urn burials, and these were all considered as late Neolithic and as burial of the high status groups. So some kind of a social hierarchy was presumed as far as the construction of dolmens and cists other than urn burials was postulated. Two types of dolmens were found at Muttugadu. Recently, some of them were excavated by the State Department of Archaeology as well. We see single slabs or orthostatic rocks have been made. And Iyer has also observed the Malayarayans at that point, 1940s, 1930s, 40s, was making, constructing mini dolmens. Now, coming with this background, let us look at the scientific clearance that was done at Bison Valley recently. 12 of the 50, when we reached the site, 12 of the 15 urns which were reported were already exposed, and the material was collected by the local native villagers. Now, scientific clearance was done in two urns, urn 4 and urn 5. They were to be tarred. The region was to be, the road was being laid and tarring was going on. So a salvage archaeology was the only way of providing or getting some information from the site. Otherwise, we would have lost a lot of valuable evidence. Now, incidentally, we also saw cyst 4, where a porthole was found, which was broken in the road construction. It was about 2.5 meters in diameter. In the cyst burials, we have the cyst burial, and inside the cyst burial, we see the urn. And inside the urn or beneath the urn, we see various grave goods. That is how normally we find. Okay, this is a general layout of the site. Here we can see that the road is being constructed. We see about 4 cysts, cyst 1, cyst 2, cyst 3 and 4. Cyst 1 and 2 were already, all of them have been examined by the villagers. Cyst 1 and cyst 2. Incidentally, from the cysts, we are getting evidence which is different from those which are in the surrounding urns. And again, one more interesting thing, in the floodplains, no cysts have been reported so far by the villagers. Only urns have been reported, urn burials have been reported. So we need to think about the hierarchies and the mortuary variability, particularly in relation to cysts, urn burials, and also the location within the burial ground, the floodplain, in the floodplain, and above the floodplain. So these kind of new ideas, these need to be examined in other sites in Idukki as well as other regions. So detailed excavations and examinations of the region are required. Okay, now we will be looking at some of the examples of in order to understand the intra-site variability, not only between the cysts and the urns, but also between the urns. So each burial is unique. Capstone has been missing in some cases, but it seems capstone was there covering the urns, and they were probably broken. We found blackware rims and pottery were found disturbed in the upper layers of the soil in this urn 6, which was further disturbed, not distributed, disturbed by a cable. Megalithic pottery was found just below surface, which indicates that the topsoil was removed in the past few years, thus exposing these finds hidden for thousands of years. So this region has been disturbed in the recent past heavily, And that's why the topsoil has been removed and we are able to see the exposed megalithic burials at almost on the surface. Urn 1 and urn 2. In urn 1, a blackware ring stand was found. And in urn 2, we found the broken rim of a pot, which was carefully dressed and used as a base for the small pots. So it was basically used as a ring stand, but it was a reuse. In the case of urn 1, we see a black ring stand made of blackware. So again, we see there is slight differences in the urns, shape of the urns, the size of the urns, but there is much more variability as far as the mortuary goods are concerned. Urn 5, here we can see the capstone, and in the urn 5, we could see some of the layers of deposition was quite clear. This was actually in the middle of the road, which was being laid. And first, when we removed the soil, the first we came across a blackware bowl at a depth of 50 centimeters inside the urn. And slightly lower than that was another well-fired, well-polished blackware. The fabric of the pottery is quite different from what we see in the lower reaches of Periyar Basin. The third one to be encountered was redware. This was also well burnished. It was burnished redware. Further, on the eastern corner of this large urn, a black and redware pot was found. Fifth pottery was the largest among the associated pottery. All of them were broken. It was because there's constant vehicular movement on top of it. It was this fifth one was also the largest from the site. This black and redware pot had a conical base. Finally, 3 blackware pots were found at the bottom of the urn, towards the bottom. The blackware pot, the first one was slightly turned. Then there was another pot which was kept upside down. Then there was another blackware small dish which was slightly turned. So perhaps these indicate some kind of rituals at the time of deposition. These last 3 do not seem to have changed, do not seem to have been disturbed much. Whereas in the other cases, a lot of disturbance was there because the site itself was under heavy disturbance. Okay, this is some of the pottery which has been found in the site from the various urns. There is also one russet coated painted ware. We have just collected this about 2 weeks ago, so the cleaning is going on, numbering is going on, so I couldn't take better photographs of this. Okay, there's also some iron which is found. So this is the iron sword which has been found from a cyst, and this is found from cyst 1. And then we also find this etched, as Akinori would prefer to call it, bleached carnelian beads. Now this is very typical, very commonly found in most of the megalithic sites in South India. So looking at the evidence, the grave goods assemblage that we have, we can divide them into 4 categories. The carnelian stone beads, which include etched or bleached, plain, micro. Micro here means smaller beads, small beads. Then disc beads, and then cylindrical beads. Iron, these include weapon. This is an example. And then pottery, black and redware. 4 types of pottery: blackware, redware, and russet coated painted ware. Just one instance of russet coated painted ware. And then quartz microlith. Quartz microlith was found in both urn 4 and urn 5, which were subjected to scientific clearance. So most probably the other, this evidence was missed. There is a possibility for that. So this is the general nature of what to expect as far as the grave goods are concerned. You have already seen this slide in Akinori's presentation, and here we can see these categories which are found in Tamil Nadu, This one, okay. Let me use the pointer, this one, and this type and this type. Okay, so this is these category of etched carnelian beads are found in Bison Valley. They are found not only in Bison Valley, they are also found, see here we can see, though this cylindrical bead is not found, we can see the same design here. This is from Neeramakulam. Okay, so the same thing we also find in Bison Valley. Okay, so now the beads have been the most interesting, like in the sense they were found in 3 different phases. First, in the 1990s, a few were reported by the villagers. More careful examination was done by the villagers, and they are using this as ornament now. I saw many of them were wearing it. You know, both men and women were wearing these beads. So small stone beads were found first. About 50 to 60 beads were found in a cyst. Etched cylindrical beads, probably of the early historic late Iron Age period. That is the preliminary classification that we can give for the period of this particular site as of now. Most of these beads were circular beads. All these beads were of carnelian. And the recently from another cyst burial, 3 etched, not disc beads, circular beads along with a sword were found in a cyst burial. So we see that the number of most of the discovery of beads as well as of iron is found in the cysts for the time being. All this, it's all based on evidence from a heavily disturbed site. So we cannot take them for granted, but then we can always use it in order to improve our understanding about the megaliths of Kerala. So I move on to the concluding part. The etched carnelian beads, the plain stone beads, and the ceramics, particularly the russet-coated painted ware, offer insights into the regional elements of Iron Age cultures. RCPW has not been reported from this region for the time being. And that shows the late Iron Age, early historic period. That is one of the reasons why there has been no carbon-14 date for this site or for any of the sites nearby. The nearest, so we are at present depending on relative dating based on the bead typology as well as the presence of pottery. So we need to actually excavate this region and get reliable dates, scientific dates. The second point, the ceramics are similar to nearby sites in type, but a few shapes were distinct. Third, the arrangement of pottery within burials could be observed and intra-site variability was noticed. The fourth point, the distribution of pottery, iron weapon, and beads was of differential nature in the urns and in the cysts. Conclusions continue. The fifth point, standardized ceramic elements have been noticed, and these suggest some kind of interaction with a wider world, and so some network. Sixth point, black and red ware is a widespread. It's found in almost all the urns as well as in the cysts. And it is the dominant vessel type is typical of late Iron Age. Cysts were fewer in number compared to the urn burials in the site. In the case of these burials, local natural resources of stone as well as clay were utilized. The next point, the burial monuments are symbolic expressions of certain social values, and we will be able to reconstruct these social values to some extent on the basis of the remains or the material record. And the last point, as a from the preliminary analysis, there seems to have been evidence for craft specialization during this period. Evidence of specialized technology. Some aspect of long distance trade or exchange, because this North Indian etched carnelian beads at present we attribute a North Indian origin, and we have been finding this in these sites. Now, what kind of network did they use for this interaction will be interesting. And did they have direct contact with those places, or did they have contact with some other region? And in return for what did they receive these beads? And what was the symbolic value that these beads or other grave goods had for them for that particular during that period? This also suggests craft specialization, and the presence of these goods, such as non-local goods, would indicate, and high good quality fine ceramics would indicate agricultural surplus, because craft specialization can be supported only that way. And also we get evidence for agriculture. We also know that the location was a floodplain, and so it was ideal for rice cultivation, and we have found remains of paddy husk. And from another site in Idukki, that is Ambalamedu, also paddy husk has been reported. And so from the mortuary variability, from the site, intra-site variability, and also in the difference in the distribution of grave goods, we can postulate some element of social hierarchy for this period. And this site at Bison Valley offers a certain clues and insights into the regional perspectives of Iron Age. Okay, so thank you.